Welcome to Faith Walk Life Talk podcast, coming at you large and in charge, and faith walking in my stilettos. I am your host, Empress, the evangelist, and we are back like we never left. We are talking about Rizpah, one of the unsung heroes in the Bible. She is a dynamic, powerful figure amongst women in the Bible, and we're continuing the conversation of a mother's love never dies. I am so super excited to have my special guest with me. She is dynamic and powerful in her own right, and beautiful, I might add. Her name is Oresa Napper-Williams, but known as Reese. Welcome, Reese.
Thank you, sis.
I am
Thank
glad
you.
that you are here. I want the people, the listeners, to understand just how, when I say dynamic, just how dynamic you are. Oresa, an innate leader and organizer is the founder and visionary of Not Another Child, Inc., an organization that provides unconventional therapeutic support and advocates for families and communities directly impacted by gun violence. Her forward thinking, creativity, and speaking wholeheartedly for survivors has thrust NAC to heights beyond belief, all in the memory of Oresa's eldest son, Andrell Duran Napper, who was innocently gunned down on August 7th, 2006. Oresa's continuous work has made her a national leader. She serves on the board of the Black and Brown Prevention Consortium, which is the foundation of the Fund Peace Initiative, who helped shape talks of gun violence on the national level through the Biden administration. As part of the BBPC, Oresa has also helped establish the first community Violence Leadership Academy at the esteemed University of Chicago. Her contribution of curriculum writing and mentoring leaders from across the country helps her to continue to make her mark on earth. When asked how these experiences have changed her life, Oresa states, "In my youth, I lost a lot of friends due to gun violence. Yet never in any nightmare could I have imagined what their loved ones were going through. This journey has given me empathy for those on both sides of the gun, has strengthened me to create support for families and advocate that justice be served in either situation." She is the author of a book that she wrote, "And Then I Awoke: Releasing Your Potential and Purpose in Life." And that was released in 2008. And it was dedicated in memory of Andrell. She will next author Good Grief: Strategies for Grieving in the 21st Century. Oresa is also the founding member of the two-time Grammy Award-winning Love Fellowship Crusade Choir. I am so welcomed. I'm so excited to welcome Oresa to the Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Your voice is indeed one that we want to hear.
Thank God.
You have a lot to say. Before we go into all of that, I want to congratulate you. You recently had the opportunity to speak at the White House, and I'd like for you to really share that with our listeners. Like, what was that like? What was the purpose of you being there, and how has that impacted the work that you're doing now?
Yeah. So once again, thank you so much for having me here. Strong Island, although I love it, it's not my preferred place to come to on a morning, but it was worth it.
Yes.
You know, I wanted to be here with you so that we could have this conversation, and it was worth the 2.5 almost hour trip.
My
you
goodness.
know, but yes, thank you. Our meeting was God ordained.
Amen.
You know, at this time in life, from being around so many of the same circles.
Wow.
You know, but having this experience actually connect us. And so thank you for this opportunity.
Sure.
The White House, the people's house.
The people's
Our house.
Yes.
You know, with being a part of the Black Brown Peace Consortium, I have been invited several times over the last few years,
That's awesome.
always to the releasing of something or to some major announcement, different things like that, being in the Rose Garden, being in other places, there. But this was actually the graduation, the first cohort graduating from the Community
Nice.
Violence Intervention Leadership Academy,
Nice.
which, as you stated prior, I was a part of the curriculum writing, of a part of the foundation,
Yes,
of
yes.
shaping what that academy should look like. Because right now, community violence intervention is a thing.
Yes.
It's a lot of organizations that's doing it across the country, and what we want to do is not just make it an inner city thing and not just it be jobs off of their experience, but give them the expertise and the professionalism that comes along with any job. We want people to take us serious.
Absolutely.
Our babies are getting killed and dying, and we don't want you just coming in, just shooting it from the cuff and from the hip. It's models, it's different things, it's experiences and professionalism that we want you to have.
Wow.
And so we created that leadership academy, and like you said, out of the esteemed University of Chicago.
That's awesome.
Who would have thought that?
Right.
And so they created two community academies, one being the Police Academy and one being CVI LA. And this, as their first graduation, they asked myself and Anthony Smith from Cities United to be the national community partners.
Wow.
That spoke to the actual cohort, to the scholars. And when I tell you, the experience was phenomenal.
I'm sure.
Not to just be at the White House, but to speak, to be standing behind a podium with the White House emblem in the front, to be able to say my son's name, in the atmosphere there.
So powerful.
Yeah,
So powerful.
and like I told them when I spoke, like, our children never made it there physically, but today they're making it here.
I looked at your social media platform. I got a little sneak peek of your speech, and it was a powerful demonstration that you wore a lot of the faces of those that were killed on your actual garment. I thought it was a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You
Thank
stand you stand as a pillar for us all.
Thank you so much.
This is our first time meeting. I believe it's divine, but we are a part of a community, a sisterhood that I personally would not want to be a part of.
Absolutely not.
But if this is where I have to be,
but since this is.
since it is,
If it is. Since it is where God has ordained us to be.
Amen.
At this time.
Well, since it is.
Might as well do it in our stilettos.
Here we are. Here we are. Since we're here.
Yes.
I would not want to be a part of with any other person than you.
Absolutely.
You have come
Same
into
here.
my life almost, immediately as a mentor,
Thank God.
some of the things you've called at times where it was just perfect, spot on. And I knew that it was God. And I've been very keenly aware of when God is sending you someone.
Yes.
Honor them, know that they're there because they were sent from God.
Right.
And be appreciative of it.
And thank you for allowing me to be a part of your life.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
sometimes in this journey, when your children transition, it's hard. To know who's around you and for what reasons,
Right.
and new people and things like that. And that's why I am surrounded always with my girlfriends that was with me in labor.
From the very
when I had my,
beginning.
when
Yes.
Andrell was in Brooklyn Hospital with yellow jaundice in his eyes, with getting a
Right.
blood transplant that was with me
Right.
prior to having them.
Right.
God has been faithful, and they've been those girls.
I always say, show me a woman without sisters, and show me a woman in deficit.
Yeah.
We need that. We need our sisters, and these are the times when we definitely need them the most. So we've touched on some of your accomplished work and where you are now, but of course, work starts from somewhere.
Absolutely.
And as we stated, the work started out of tragedy. Can you share with the listeners a little bit about the story of Andrell and the loss and what that looked like for you?
Phew. And so, as much as you tell the story, you never want it to be in a way where it just sounds repetitious.
Absolutely.
But August 7th, 2006, I received a call as you that no mother
None
would ever want to receive.
My God.
And even looking back to the day prior, August 6th, I'll never forget. It was a Sunday. Andrell hadn't come home that night. And so when I fell asleep and woke up the next morning, I'm like, where's he at? And before I could even look, he had texted me, Ma, I left my keys, couldn't find them.
Right.
Can you meet me in Port Authority, with my keys or with your keys or whatever? And so I met him there. But I had been waiting for him for at least an hour and a half.
Wow.
I was on my way to work, was then late for work, but when he came, he had been at my cousin's house, Kitty, and babysitting my niece or little cousin, Makai.
Yes.
And Makai took ill that morning, so my mother said, no, I'm going to come and get her. And then, he left to meet me.
Yes.
And, my whole experience has taught me when I look back, just patience. When I talk about it now, just the patience of waiting for him for that hour and a half.
Wow.
Not knowing that would be the last time I see him alive.
My.
So had I left, out of anxiousness, like I've been late to work before, so that wasn't nothing new,
Yes.
but just waiting for him and getting on the train at Port Authority and taking the train down and him getting off at Hoyt and Skimmerhorn, I have a job interview and then I'm gonna go home after that. And I'm like, okay. But when I got home later, he wasn't there.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay. At this point, he's grown. He's 21.
Yeah,
who's
that's
beating
not
down the door like,
shocking.
where you at?
Sure.
Right? Absolutely. So, you let it roll. And I'll never forget at about 10:25, 10:30, getting that call from my cousin, Reese, Ronnie has been shot. That's his pet name for us. That's the family name. Deron, we call it Ronnie.
Yeah, yes.
He would know when I was mad because I'd say, Andrell.
Yes.
And he'd be like, oh, shoot, what did I do?
Yeah, I'm in trouble.
Absolutely.
Big trouble.
Any other time, it's Ronnie.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? Now, what people don't know was that Andrell was shot in school.
In the school.
About 3 to 4 years prior.
Ah, yes.
He was 17 years old in Martin Luther King High School. A young man had come in that day, had an altercation with my nephew, left out through a side door, propped the door open, came back in with a handgun.
Jesus.
And saw Andrell and his friend Andre and said, where's your cousin? And Andrell is like, I'm on my way to class. I hope he is too.
Right.
And goes to walk away, and the young
Wow.
man starts shooting. So Andrell is shot in his third vertebrae in his back, and Andre is shot in his buttocks. But so fast forward back to August 7th, when I got this call.
Right.
I was calm. And at this point, I'm living in Union City, New Jersey, right through the Lincoln Tunnel. So I'm asking my cousin, where did they take him? I don't know. I'm trying to find out now. And you hear the cops screaming at him because, of course, he's going insane because my son was there visiting him.
Wow.
After his interview, he finishes and he says, I haven't seen my cousin Rob in a minute. Let me go over here. And he goes there to check him out. This is what we do.
Right.
As family.
Yep.
And
Sure.
get through the tunnel and go to it's the hospital that they take most trauma patients to.
That word trauma.
In Manhattan. Absolutely. So we go there and the police is there and they say, okay, we'll have the family wait right here in this room. And so we go in that room. At this point, then I'm with Russ, who's now my husband.
Yes.
Who was not my husband then.
Okay.
And we go in this room, and the doctor comes, and he says, you're the family? Yes. Then the officer comes and says, who are you here looking for? And we're like, Andrell.
Right.
You know, and they go out and they come back and they say, we have the family of the young man that's here in surgery. And so we're like, okay. So they're like, try Woodhull Hospital. And at that point, my heart sinks.
Wow. What was it about Woodhull?
Woodhull is right around the corner from where he was shot. Woodhull is not a trauma hospital. Woodhull is just a hospital.
Just an hospital. Yeah, okay.
So as we arrive there, we look, and Woodhull has this long ramp going up where the ambulance come up and they go down, different things. And when I tell you this ramp was, I couldn't even walk through. It was so many people. And I'm looking like, what are you doing here? At that point, I did not know my child was shot in the back of his head.
Jesus.
Running away, trying to get out of the line of fire.
Jesus.
One face that I remember so vivid, and I don't know why, is Melvin Crispell.
Oh, okay. Yes, we know
Who's
him.
my other son's godfather.
Okay.
And Melvin has tears in his eyes.
So he's there.
Sitting, yes. And I'm walking through, and it's like so many faces. And you know, right now the face is a blur.
You don't
but every
even
time
know.
I tell the story, I remember that Melvin was there. And I'm like, wow. And so we go in the back, and other family members are there, and the officers come, the doctor comes out, and they're like, Mom is here now, you know, and he's like, oh, okay. So he's like, do you know what your son was doing over here? So I said, do I know what my son was doing over here?
Questioning you.
He was visiting a family member. Okay, do you know what your son had on?
Wow. To
I said,
be asked these questions.
And in past tense.
Without you even...
But I caught it just like that.
Of course. Wow.
And I burst out. I'm just here to find out what is going on with my son.
Sure.
Do your job. Let me know.
Sure.
And as he says, I'm sorry, we lost him, and turns to walk away.
My God.
It was no other place to go but down.
Yeah.
From there.
Wow. You know, your story is so aligned with my experience that even as you tell it, the chill, and it never. This has been 17 years for you.
Absolutely.
It's been a little over a year for me. But I can even still see, even as you tell it, that you relive it.
Absolutely. Every time.
Every single time.
It opens back up that womb, you know.
Wow.
But I think it's also God showing me, I need you to keep this place tender.
Okay.
I need you to always feel another parent's affliction.
Yes.
When you have not arrived. 17 years or not, you have not arrived.
Yes.
I want this to still feel tender for you, like you're reliving that time.
Wow.
Because whenever you feel like, yeah, well, this is my story and I'm so strong and this is how.
Absolutely.
Like you're not relatable anymore.
You're not feel it.
You have to feel it. And even as I left the hospital, tears in my eyes, like I'm looking and the J train stops there and I'm like, where is my son? Where is Justin? Like he's not here and I just got this news. And I see Justin coming down these stairs and these stairs are long.
Yes.
And it hits me that this is the last time I've never seen my kids together again.
Both of them
absolutely.
Together, sure.
They get to an age where it used to be the three of us, all the pictures of the three of us, and then the pictures stop with me, and it's just them two.
Yes.
You know, and as God would have it, they had a disagreement and was not together that week.
Wow.
And I'm looking, and I fall to my knees, and Justin walks to me, and he says, Ma, get up. Ronnie would not want you doing this.
So he was your pillar of strength.
My
in
pillar of strength.
Wow.
In that moment.
That's we also share that in common, that we have two sons. My youngest son is away at school, so when this all happened with us, He was the one that actually called us and said, Mom, Xavier had been in a car accident.
Wow.
And we jumped out of the bed and we said, let's go get this boy.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Absolutely.
he broke his arm or something.
Absolutely.
He's always into something. Young adults will be young adults. And we walked through the hospital. We walked through the emergency room. We walked through the trauma center. And there was nothing in my spirit that indicated what was to come next. When everything would go black. So we are navigating that missing piece, that missing dynamic in our family dynamic. But as we go back and forth in our stories, and I appreciate what you've shared, getting back to Rizpah. So and I was sharing before we went live, and I said, no, I don't want to share too much. I want us to really share this with our listeners. But I had spoken to you, you called me, it took me all of this time since the transition of Xavier to even have the courage to speak on this. So you sitting here with me, we're speaking on this is a next step in my journey.
Nice.
But I was laying there, and as I do my podcast, we always talk about women in the Bible. I started really thinking, well, maybe we'll talk about Job's wife. But that was never really my response. I never cursed God. I did not get angry with God. I got angry with the situation, but I did not get angry with God. So I could not really see how this would be the woman that I would highlight in this instance. But God began to reveal to me Rizpah. And Rizpah is someone that you can kind of not even know who she is. She's kind of not the focal point of the story, right? In fact, when I was, speaking to some people and I said, we're gonna focus on Rizpah, people are like, that name sounds familiar, but who is that, right? And so I encourage listeners and anyone who doesn't know who she is. She's found in 2 Samuel around the 21st chapter, but that's not where she's first mentioned. But this is where we really are honing in for this particular episode. But Rizpah did something that really resonated with me, and I know it was God that opened my eyes and revealed her to me in this instance. And we know that Rizpah lost 2 sons. We know that they were given up as a sacrifice to atone for something that they had no part in, right? They were not, they weren't guilty of what they were paying the price for. And I know we feel that, right? Why my son? For Xavier, he was in a car with 5 people and he's the only one that lost his life. Why was it my son? Someone who loves the Lord, who prays for others, children. How is it that I lost mine? And as you said, since we're here, since this is my lot, it is well with my soul. It takes a journey to get to that. But anyway, Rizpah had really no voice. She had no power to protect her sons in this particular instance when they when David decided these are the 2, because when you read, he has a covenant with Jonathan, so Jonathan's son was spared. He could have been one of the 7 that was given up for the atonement, but he decided, why break 2 covenants? So I'm going to spare Jonathan's sons, but Rizpah's 2 sons were given out of this 2 out of the 7. But Rizpah stays there with people. When you read the word, it says she stays from the beginning of harvest until the rains. And so unless you really research that, you would never really know that Rizpah stayed vigil for months, between 5 to 6 months. She stayed there watching a gruesome view of her sons hanging dead, decomposing, guarding them from birds, guarding them from beasts. But it wasn't just that she was just sitting vigil as a mother, but she was silently protesting. So she was able to move out of her grief into a place where she was now determined to bring honor to her sons. I couldn't save you in life,
Right.
but you're gone now. I have to accept that. But it's what you do from this point on.
Right.
And so that's where we share that we cannot just let our children just die.
Yeah.
We can't let the story just be that Andrell was gunned down, Xavier was taken through a tragic car accident due to a reckless driver. That can't just be the story.
Absolutely.
It has to be, where does the tragedy turn into triumph? So my question would be to you, Reese, what part of Rizpah's story resonates with you?
It is so funny because even as I was reading it as well, her intent was to assure that they got a proper burial.
Yes.
All of this is happening, but she became their advocate,
Yes.
even in death.
Yes.
And when people say, "Oh my God, when did you start advocacy work?" And I'm like, I was a single parent all of my son's life, similar to Rizpah.
Yes. Yes.
With two sons.
Two
And
sons.
when I look at it, I've advocated at school. No, nothing is wrong with him. He doesn't
Right.
need any medication. He doesn't have ADHD.
We do it.
Absolutely. And so the advocacy work starts early on in life.
From day one.
Absolutely. And
Sure.
so I think that what Rizpah was doing was to make sure that people saw a different side of her sons.
Absolutely.
In death. They were born from her, but from Samuel.
Yes.
But she was his concubine.
From Saul.
From
Yes.
Saul.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
She was the concubine.
Sure.
So it was like, she was like a little side
Yes,
chick.
yes,
So you
Make
don't
it
get
plain.
all the, absolutely, you
Yes.
don't get all the privilege that everybody else does.
Yes.
And I think that with her, it was even that their legacy lives on,
Absolutely.
but in a way that they are never forgotten. Andrell had no children.
Xavier.
Do you know how many
Minded
times
to
I've been
Xavier.
like, I talked this boy into using a condom?
Me too.
all these
Don't you
years.
come to me saying,
Absolutely.
no, I don't want to hear no stories.
Absolutely.
And what I would not give now to see.
What
Yes.
I would not give to have had a little big head
Yes.
grandchild running around here,
Absolutely.
in or out of wedlock.
I would have preferred
Absolutely.
in,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
now on this side of it, I just would have preferred
Absolutely.
legacy.
So now it is up to us.
Yes.
To make sure, because even in our state, and I'll talk about from the gun violence side for
Yes,
a second.
sure.
It's a stigma that comes along with that.
Sure.
When our African American males are killed,
Say
the
that.
first thing that is thought of, was they in a gang? What
On
was they
drugs.
doing? Was they on drugs?
Sure.
Was they selling drugs? Like all of that. And so it takes a mother, or it takes those people, the parents,
Yes.
the dad, to really set up and cover them.
Yes. And set the narrative.
Absolutely.
No. Right.
Absolutely. Cover them, and then, and in some cases, be transparent.
Absolutely.
Yes, my son was in a gang, but guess what? This is who he really was.
This is where right.
And I'm going to show you what his legacy really is.
Really is, and why God put him on this earth.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
remember the first time I felt that way at the funeral. And people said really nice things about my son, and I just felt like, initially I thought I would just sit here and just try to keep it together and not lose it. But there was something in me that said, no, you've got to use this moment to create a narrative that whatever you thought he was, or whatever your experience with him was, who he was a young man who was reared in a home, taught the word of God, trained in prayer, served the bishop as an acolyte, very active in the community.
Nice.
My husband is a teacher in the community, so well known, well respected, and I wanted that on record. I wanted that to be, and that's when I realized that it was very important to establish a legacy beyond, what had happened in life, that there was a work to be done. I started to hear in a still small voice, God's calling me to a work.
Yes. Yes.
So yes, I identify with that. We have to be advocacies in life and even beyond life.
Yeah.
Because a mother's love never dies.
Never. And I commend you. I did not have the strength to do that.
Really?
I did not. When I tell you, that day is still foggy to me. You know, that, like, all of that is still like, what? Wait, what happened? You know, like, wait, my child isn't here?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like, whoever thinks that? And in a way, now I'm not ignorant that we're all going to last forever.
Absolutely. We're not saying
just
that.
But just in the way that things happen, you know, and it took me a minute. Like, I'll never forget the 3 weeks after that I was at my brother and sister's house, Neil and Regina, after my son was murdered, because they took me and put me in a car. Like, nope, you're not going home by yourself.
Sure.
You're not. And as I was there, I couldn't get alone time because they was
leave
in the
you
bed
alone
with me. And I'm like, y'all all right? Like, I know I might smell a little something now because y'all not letting me do nothing.
Right.
You know, and even as I got the phone calls from the detective, you know, well, we'll let you know if your son had anything to do with this. Like, different things like that, you know, and just stealing away to the bathroom and being able to cry out to God and like, why did this happen? Like, and I started thinking about the story where the child was born blind.
Wow. Okay.
And the parents said, like, what did we do that he was born? And God said, no, it's to show my glory.
To your glory.
It's to show, like, this ain't glory. About you.
Wow.
Like, yeah, you all that, but this is the least bit about you.
Yes.
And I need this different.
Wow.
You know, I need this to show how I can heal. Now, that was given to me further down the line.
Sure.
But it was just about taking that weight off of me that, nah, it's not about you.
You didn't do anything wrong.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. But it was also dealing with, this was some of the stuff that I gave you to do when Andrea first got shot.
Wow. It was all being
absolutely
formed.
Orchestrated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I like in the beginning how you were saying, you said something about not being angry with God, but being angry. I was
at
angry
the situation.
At the situation,
sure.
But I was angry at the system.
Well, you know, so we're getting to that,
okay,
because the system does have it is a source of contention for me.
Yes.
And it is a place where I'm figuring out as I'm experiencing, because we're still experiencing
absolutely
a lot of the system
absolutely.
And how it works, you know, without getting into a lot of that. And so, but it is the place where I'm starting to figure out, this is the place where my work is going to be focused.
Absolutely.
To correct. Yeah, this is not right.
Yeah.
And they poke the bear.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as the young people would say, get somebody else to do it.
Right,
you know?
right.
When you ask God to use you, and when you start to say, thy will be done, those are the most powerful words you could ever say. Because we think that means something, you know,
fluffy.
Yeah, we do. And he says, all right, thy will be done, you know. And it made me think about Jesus when he said, you know, if it be, let this cup pass from me. But he had nevertheless, let thy will be done. You know, we don't want to take the sip of that cup, you know, but when we are sold out for Christ, whatever our lot is taught us to say it as well. Right? So with what we've gone through, and you know, you have done extensive work. You have laid out how tragic it was for you, how you found yourself just crying out, how you walked into that hospital, you know, and how you were treated, and, you know, coming to the, you know, the devastating news that your son was taken. I want to know what happened the day you decided to get up from that place and decide I've got work to do.
So, the same year that Andrell was murdered,
The same year.
more and more started being revealed. I would say in the first week they had arrested 2 individuals.
Okay.
One was 15 years old and one was 25 years
A
old.
young child.
Absolutely. The 15 actually pled guilty.
Okay.
You know, and my family was going crazy
Sure.
because he was only given 9 years. You know, he was given 9 years, but I could not
For
focus.
life.
Absolutely. But I was determined not to focus on things like that.
Okay.
You know, like, okay, it is what it is.
Now why?
Because I knew that wasn't the work that God had for me.
Okay.
To focus on that, because at that time, I wanted to reach more of him.
Okay.
You know, so he was promised a gun and drugs, you know, to support his life of crime, you
Okay.
know. And although he pled guilty to that, he still had other cases that was open, you know. And so the day that he was supposed to start trial, he took his not guilty plea back and pled guilty and was given a sentence and everything. One person from his family was there, his uncle. And the uncle asked to speak to me after, and the uncle boo-hoo cried, "I'm so sorry. This shouldn't have never happened like this."
Sure.
You just whatever that conversation was.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel, I knew that wasn't my work. But what I did want to do was set the platform to talk to more young boys and girls about their the choices.
Sure.
Like, life gives you choices, and you can choose from those choices, but you can't choose your consequence.
Say that
Your
again.
consequence is always predicated on somebody else.
Wow.
And so I wanted to set that platform to speak to them. What other way to do that but basketball?
Well,
You
yes.
know, did the basketball. When I tell you I had them in there,
Sure.
it was a one-day event. Pee Wee Kirkland was there. He's a street legend.
Yes.
And, you know, all of this. And we had food and we had, you know, just speaking to them and stuff.
Yes.
I didn't have it. It was no stage. I had a little DJ.
Sure.
Had T-shirts. I think we ironed the numbers on the back, different
Yes,
stuff like
yes.
that. And as the years progressed, the second year, I had a one-day event again. About the third year, maybe one day again. About the 4th or 5th year, it started to transition.
About the 4th or 5th year. Okay.
We had teams from Pennsylvania,
Wow.
from Connecticut, from Staten Island. And you know, Staten Island is one of the 5 boroughs.
Yeah.
So it's really
That's what they
It's
say.
like a whole nother.
That's a whole nother state.
Yes.
Yeah.
It went from a one day to a full weekend
Really?
to a full month.
Oh, wow.
Now it starts the Saturday after the 4th of July and
Okay.
extends to almost the full August
Really?
on Fridays and Saturdays. Sometimes they have to do games during the week. and
Amazing.
just so much. But
That's
even in
awesome.
that, yeah, and you know, you do what you think is best at that time. You know, and I'm like, oh, God, thank you, God, this is it. You know, this, that, and the other. Yeah, I'm doing this in memory. But then the families started coming. Parents, like, how can I be a part of this? I lost my son too.
Wow.
My son was murdered too. Like, how can I be a part of this? You know, and then God had it where because at this time when Andrell was murdered, I was working in my church.
Yes. Okay.
I was working at Love Fellowship. It was so ironic. I left work that day. When I came back, they hadn't changed the clock. The clock had stopped at 10:05 p.m. the day I left. That's what time he was killed. He was murdered.
Wow.
That 10:05 p.m. They never changed the clock because they wanted me to see it.
Isn't that something that those are the little intricacies
Yes.
that you will never
Yes.
forget?
Yes.
Just little deep. There's things you don't remember, and
Yes.
then there's just things that just stick with you.
Absolutely. And so even as I'm working at the church, one of the members called and is like, Reese, we just saw these group of kids just running around in the back of East New York. It's the summer, and they're running around talking about, bury the beef, bury the beef. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
She said they're going up to their colleagues and saying, we know you in gangs. We know that you got a problem with this one. Y'all need to bury it because we're dying. And then I'm like,
wow.
I'm talking to her, and the tears are rolling. And she comes to the church, and she says, this is the card that they're giving out, and this is the number. And so I call the number on the card, and one of the kids answered the phone, and they're like, hello? And I said, is this one of the kids that's doing the bury the beef? Yes, this is. And I'm telling them, I'm still tender.
Sure.
So I'm saying,
yeah.
I'm so glad that y'all are doing that. I wish y'all would have been doing this, giving them the whole background and the history. And the kids was like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, some lady, they talking to somebody in the office now. And they said, hold on, miss. And they put the person on the phone, and they're like, this is, hello, Hotep. This is what they always say. Hotep, this is Brother Mitchell. How can I help you?
Sure.
So I'm like, I was just calling to tell the kids, and he said, sister, what are you doing right now? Can you come over here and talk to them for me? I want them to see how important it is what they're doing.
Wow.
And I left the church, and I went over there, and I talked to them for a minute. And that was the beginning of the work for me.
Your steps ordered by the Lord.
Andre Mitchell, the founder of Man Up. When I tell you, like after that, preaching, we're going to church, God has your name at the table when you're not even there. And, it's a door strategically being open for...
Sure.
It's exactly what happened to me.
Exactly what it was.
As the city started to expand their work, and, I call him AT. His name's Andre. He came to the basketball tournament, and we have pictures of us all black hair and of like 20, 25 pounds lighter, like 18, I'm sorry, not 18, like 15, 16 years ago.
Yes.
And they come back to me, him and Peterson, who's his partner, said, sister, if we got you $50,000 to support families, what would you do?
What?
And I said, why are y'all asking me that? Because we're in talks with the city about building out a system.
Wow.
We want to know, what would you do? Write a budget. Let us see it.
God had you right there strategically.
I said, okay. And the more I did it and the more I worked with them, God just, and I was talking to my goddaughter this morning. I said, as many parents that that travel this journey, because it's not a destination. It is a journey we will be on
no
until the day we die.
Yes.
As many parents as that travel this journey, I just want to be unique in my walk. Like, I can't do what everyone else is doing. Like, God...
Sure.
Obviously, that didn't work because it would have been others for me to call on when it first happened.
Right.
The only two people I called on was Dorothy Johnson Spite with Mothers in Charge in Philly and Jackie Rowe Adams with Harlem Mother Saves in Harlem.
Okay.
So I had a guiding light. I had a light, but they're much older women. They've been in the work for a while.
For a long time.
And they were able to teach me how to walk and chew gum.
Okay.
How to grieve and support other mothers.
And that's important.
But it was still an area of growth.
Wow.
Like, how do you do this and just build that survival work?
And how did you tap into your courage to do it? Because it is indeed uncharted territory. And as you said, there was no one that looked like you in your age age range, I should say, that was doing work like this. And yes, you did have some sort of examples. What was the driving force or the thing that made you courageous enough to do something that you've never done before in the midst of grief? Even though there were doors being presented to you, sometimes we can retreat and say, I'm not ready. I just want to heal from this pain that I don't even know where it's coming from, that's deep within. What was it that you were able to manage grief, trauma, because a lot of times we don't talk about the trauma of it.
Absolutely.
The grief, the trauma, the profound loss, but then say, I don't even know this work. It's one thing if you were doing it and this happened.
Right.
But now you're going to do something that you've never done before. And that takes a level of courage. And where did you find that courage from?
I think I found the courage from being around the right people and having the right support. That even when I said, I can't let it go down like this.
Yes.
You know, a friend of mine, he's like a brother, Sean P. He said, yeah, I have one of my friends that she lost her son in some way. I don't even remember how. But she was starting an organization called Not My Son. And I said, or Not Another Son, something. And I said, it's not about just sons.
Yes.
It's about everybody is somebody's child. And the more that I got out there and the more, like, it was thrust into my lap. It was like, okay, you want to keep your child's legacy alive. You're saying yes to my will.
Yes.
Then I'm going to present it before you. And my cry was always, God, please don't give me things that is not for me.
Amen.
If
Right.
it's presenting to me, I wanted to know that it is God ordained. And the more I talked to parents, the more that I saw that it was no support for them.
It isn't.
It was no, especially in Brooklyn, which is the borough that has the most homicides. It
Right.
was no peer support sessions when I started doing them.
Well, there's none here on Long Island
It
either.
it was none. And so I just saw it as gathering the mothers and just seeing that a lot of them did not have the support that I had.
Wow.
When it first happened, like being able to say that I went to somebody's house for 3 weeks and, you know, I go to some mothers' houses now and they're alone at home right after it happens.
How? I don't even know how that happened.
Yes.
When it was happening for us, my pastors were there.
Yes.
Shout
Yes.
out to Bishop Stephen and Pastor Kelly
Absolutely.
White.
Absolutely.
They were there. Some of my girlfriends, we were in the chapel, you know, in the final moments on their knees.
Yes.
Going
Yes.
before the Lord.
Yes.
Children.
Yes.
Because they were coming from a party.
Yes.
And it was a room full of children.
Jesus.
But I was never left
Never,
alone.
never.
I don't think I'm even left alone even now.
Yeah.
From
yeah.
my church.
Yes.
Just the community, the
Yes,
kingdom.
yes.
Because
Yes.
prior to the church I am in now, the church that I was previously a part of, the membership there was supportive. My family's massive, and so they came from all over.
Yes, yes.
I've not been alone.
Yes.
Our community has been surrounding us. And so for someone to be the idea or the thought that somebody went through this by themselves alone is, I can't imagine.
Can't imagine.
I can't imagine.
And you know, even when you say that, it reflects. I reflect back to my pastor, Bishop Hezekiah
Yes.
Walker, saying, "No, put her in that car right there."
That's right.
You know, my brother Bishop Mitchell Taylor, like they're outside in a huddle.
True
you know, when I
leaders.
come out, like, no, you're doing this, you're going there, you're
Taking
doing that.
control.
And I'm like, if you don't have anybody like that, I truly believe that is what made me see this journey different.
Okay.
I was not re-traumatized. I talked to so many mothers and support so many families that they leave the hospital and they go home and they're stepping over their baby's blood.
My God.
Their child could have been killed,
Jesus.
or like right in front of their
Yes,
door to the
sure.
building, or in front of the store across the street.
Yeah.
They're going into a house and their bedroom door is open with that. They're re-traumatized.
Re-traumatized.
So once you get them from that, then you have to start to build the network
Sure.
of how you can get them on the road to healing.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and so the parents just have such a place in my heart. These mothers, oh my God. And then to see some of them where it's their only child, their only son, their only daughter.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, different things like that. You know, they going back and being evicted because they can't get their mind right. So
to go
they
back into the workforce.
Absolutely.
Sure. All of these are realities that families go through when they're impacted by
Yes.
a
I have
child being taken from them. Sure.
I have one of them. All 6 of her children have been shot.
All six.
All 6 have been shot.
Jesus.
One, she went to visit a day or two after his birthday. She hears him, going back and forth with somebody on the steps. She goes out the front door. You all right? He's like, yeah, Mom, I'm good. I'm good. Go inside. The next thing she hears is shots.
And he's gone.
Go back out. She sees him rolling down the stairs. Like that's not enough.
Yeah.
We go back a day later to do a balloon release, and his blood is still there.
Jesus.
And this mother is mopping up her child's blood.
There's so many Rizpahs that are
Absolutely.
walking around today.
Absolutely.
That are walking around today.
Absolutely.
You hear what I'm saying? Jesus, to have to mop up your own blood. It makes me think about when you think about mothers who have been placed in these situations. I think about Mamie Till.
Yes.
Yes. To be presented with her, Emmett Till,
yes.
for those who don't know.
Yes. And made that decision
maimed.
Yes, made that decision to have that casket open.
Yes. What strength does it take to be able to be a mother, to grieve, move your grief aside, make statements that will establish an honor, and that recreates a narrative. Because if Mamie never did that, we would have never been talking about Emmett Till.
That's right.
It makes me think about Mary, the mother of Jesus. We're not the first.
Absolutely not.
Again, I don't want to be. I did not choose to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
This community.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think about women who had to go through these type of traumas with their children, with their sons. And like you said, it's not just sons. Our daughters are being gunned down.
Yes.
Their lives taken prematurely. So we're not, glossing over that reality.
That's right.
You have seen a lot of different case scenarios.
Yes.
And I think what's phenomenal is that you did not just stay in a bubble and just, lick your wounds.
Yeah.
And, grieve over you're for no more.
Right,
But you've been blessed to have access to many trauma victims and been able to be a part of their healing journey. I want to ask you this one question. What has been the driving force that keeps you pushing and building the foundation?
Trust.
Okay.
It is so crazy how these women trust me with their journey.
Wow.
And they know that I'm not just in it for me. Yes, not another child was built to create a legacy for Andrell, but it's not just Andrell.
Wow.
And it's not just about their children. It's about the children that we can also save.
Sure.
And so going back to the White House with even being able to tell them, I told y'all, wherever I go, your children are going to be with me. It is what it is.
Wow.
And you'll see years later, people may not forget the circumstance, but the conversation will come less and less about it.
Okay, I see.
So a lot of them, people that was there in the beginning, and that's with grief itself.
Sure.
Those that are closest to it will experience it and feel it for the rest of their life, for their loved one. Forever. And people, my mother had good friends, good girlfriends, stuff like that. I don't hear from them no more.
Wow.
Because the burden gets less on them, but it's always there with you. And so now, it's all about their trust, because even with that, I'm able to hear from them and assess, what do you ladies need? It's not about me, because I'm good just going to church on Sunday, getting strength from that and being able to go forward and do what I need to do. But my life is not my own. My life is here to be able to see what you ladies need, assess it, whether it's the healing retreats, whether it's the support sessions monthly, whether it, in Harlem and in Brooklyn, whether it's the quarterly, both of y'all meeting up and we doing something together, like whatever it is, but mostly being able to show you that God can heal you.
So you have your work is dimensional because you have programs that are targeting for the young people.
Absolutely.
But then you also have programs that are targeted for the mothers.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything that targets the fathers?
So our support sessions and things of that nature is open for families
Okay.
that have been directly impacted by violence.
Okay.
You know, so it can be siblings, it can be fathers, whatever, and whoever that is. You know, because when that one life is taken, you have the mother and the father.
Sure. Yes.
You have the spouse sometimes, which is your left hand. That's the hand you give. Your right hand has always been your sibling. Like,
Sure.
that's your first best friend.
Yeah.
You know, coming up under you may be your children. You
Okay.
know, and in here is your loved ones, your extended family. And all of those people need a different type of support. You know,
Absolutely.
although our
Sure.
services are open to fathers, we don't have a lot that participate. You know, because they hold their own weight, their own grief.
Yeah.
I've worked with some fathers like individually, and I'm trying to get them together. Like, bruh, like, what can I do to support y'all
Yes.
to have a space just for
safe
y'all?
space, sure.
I don't want to. I don't need to be a part of it. You
Yes.
know, but I know that if all of those sections don't heal and grow together, it's still going to be an imbalance in the family.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so we have siblings that's starting to do their own sibling support sessions.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know,
Yeah, that's needed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then we're going to do the spouses, the parents, because like if I can't imagine waking up and looking at the love of your life who isn't here anymore, but you see him
Right.
growing up
Yeah.
as a man, like, you know, I can't imagine that either. And so that's another thing. Like, I don't use the comparisons of whose grief or whose hurt is greater.
Sure.
Is it a mother that lost a child to gun violence? Is it a mother whose child transitioned through how did your baby pass?
He was killed in a car accident, but
Is that greater?
Yeah.
Right. It's no
The losses,
comparison.
yeah, there is no.
It's no comparison. And I think we do an injustice to each other when we compare.
Yeah, right.
You know, like I've had mothers that say, oh, this is the greatest hurt. And I'm like, stop, pause. As a kid, say pause.
Right.
You know, I have a girlfriend who is 60-something, never had children, never been married.
Wow.
She lost her dad. A year and a half later, lost her mother.
Loss is loss.
How are you going to tell her that her grief isn't as great as yours?
So I'm glad you touched on that because my husband and I, we had a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about like different questions that we wanted to make sure that we covered in this session. And he had raised a question about, and let me just read. He says, "How do you get over grief without feeling guilty of leaving your loved one behind?" Or if that's even possible.
Yeah.
And I question. I'm like, is that a good question? Because so my husband lost his parents, both his parents, and now we've lost our son. I still have my parents, and so I asked him. I don't have anything to compare this loss. I mean, I've lost people that have deeply hurt me.
Right.
I mean, deeply hurt me. But to lose my son, I felt like I was dying. And I couldn't understand how I was breathing, putting sentences together, and yet I was still alive because I really felt like I was. In fact, I went to the doctor and I sat on the thing, and he says, "Well, what can I do?" He didn't know, and I burst into tears. I says, "I'm dying," and he looked at me. He says, "Well, why do you think you're dying?" I say, "I have to be dying. This pain is so intense that the next part of it must be that I just stop breathing."
Yeah.
So even though I've experienced profound loss and it was hurtful, you know, and it was there's that, but this loss is different. And so I asked him, when you lost your parents, was it a different pain from when you lost your son? Because I don't have anything to compare this to.
Right.
And he highlighted, you know, I had my parents my whole life.
Right.
I said, yeah, but we had Xavier his whole life.
Right.
So how do you speak to, even though, the different losses, I don't know if it's the same.
Yeah. So I think that this is the greatest loss that we'll ever have.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That we will ever have.
Yes.
As a mother losing a child.
Got you. Yes.
Because of our connection. Mm-hmm. Because we've known them 9 months before they were even introduced to the world. Mm-hmm. And so I think in that same essence, and your husband's completely right, because so maybe 10 years later, my mother passed.
10 years after?
Yes, after Andra. My mother passed. But it was so strange how God did it. My mother used to, when she turned 65, I packed her up. Mm-hmm. You hauled her straight to Syracuse.
Yes.
To my sister and said, okay, you left it New York.
Yes.
Went to Syracuse University and never looked back.
Came back.
Second, third marriage, 4 kids, 20-something grandkids. It's your turn.
Yes, okay.
And so my mother would always come back to me for Thanksgiving. This year, that did not work out. She wound up staying in Syracuse for Thanksgiving. She came to me maybe a week or something before Christmas.
Okay.
Which was our church's Founders Week, Kingdom Week. So she's there. We at Brooklyn Marriott. My mother heard me sing. My mother heard me being elevated to an in-house pastor. And she's like, oh, my God. Like, I haven't heard you sing since you was a little girl. Oh, my God. We had our 25th anniversary. I was able to get a room there. Had the person to come do her hair, do her makeup. Took her to the store. Mom, pick out your gown.
Special moment.
It was special. My cousin, take a drop at my cousin's, go home to Jersey. My cousin lives by Port Authority. For her to get back on the bus the next day. Oh no, they missed the bus. They hanging out laughing to I got her, we hanging out. So that's December. January, maybe about 9th or 10th, I feel a burden. Because my son's birthday is January 16th. I don't know.
My husband's birthday is January 16th.
He's a wonderful person.
Yes, he is.
Because my child.
Yeah.
I feel a burden, but I'm thinking it's because my son's birthday is coming.
You think it's that?
Yes, it's still. My mother has her first stroke. Rushed to Syracuse. She's up and alert. Not fully alert, but she's enough to say, she's enough for that dinner to come from the church with a big piece of ham on the top. And she eats that and pushes it to the side. And I said, okay, I'm out of here. Like,
you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a few weeks later, the same thing happens, and we're all at the hospital. I spend the night. They put her on the breathing thing, so they want to see, how much she's breathing.
Oh.
Take it off, and she transitions.
Okay.
That was the first death that I had since Andrell.
So, wow, yeah.
I did not shed a tear.
Wow.
I did not shed a tear.
Why? Why do you think?
Because one thing that I learned with Andrell was to live life without regrets.
You do learn some things.
I learned to live life without. I don't care how much my mother got on my nerves.
Yes.
How much she said stuff I ain't understand. Whenever my mother called and wanted to come to New York, I'm like, oh my God.
I'm there.
Me and my husband is like, how's she coming for Founders Week?
Yeah.
You leave early in the morning to go to the school, because I had transitioned, started working at the school.
Make it happen.
I leave early in the afternoon. And I mean, we found ways to make it. I said, one thing my mother will not feel is that she's not wanted somewhere.
Wow.
My husband and my mother hung out that week and built their relationship so, like, she like, this is my son-in-law.
Yeah.
I mean, that time was so life-changing. So I did not have one regret.
That's good.
And so, my sister, on the other hand, maybe she had some regrets. My brother was in Nashville. He was going back and forth. Whatever their case was.
Right.
And I knew that I was the stronger.
Okay.
I knew that I was the stronger. And so, I did not feel anything until we went to bury her. And I felt it because we opened my son's grave to put her on top of him.
Whew.
I was crying more than my child was down there.
You don't know what you're crying
Then my mom,
for.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was like, I that morning, I couldn't get myself together.
Yeah. It just opened up. That was, the symbolic of opening up the wound.
Absolutely.
Sure.
To see all of my past.
Sure.
Because my mother was all I ever had.
Sure.
I've never been interactive with my dad.
Your whole
all
life.
of my past and some of my future in the ground. But, reality set in like, your mother was, God promised 70.
Wow. Yes.
So
God gave it to her.
they absolutely, he was a promise keeper with that.
And he's always promising.
Absolutely.
Keeping his promises.
And so myself and my husband found ourselves in the position that you're in because my husband's mom and dad was still alive.
Yeah.
And so I grasped hold to them.
Yeah.
And that became my and dad and his father, baby girl. But
Sure.
we started to have a relationship like
Sure.
he was that dad that I never had.
Well, God never leaves a boy.
No.
Yeah.
And then I was the daughter that he had lost to multiple sclerosis.
Wow.
So he would always call me Reenie. That was her name.
Yeah. Oh,
And my
wow.
husband would say, Dad, and I would go, leave
him alone. Yeah.
And so, I think that once we sit back and we really reflect on it, grief is something that you never get over. You just get through it.
You just get through it.
So it's not like a sickness, like you wake up, you have a hard cry or something like that. You wake up the next day and you're fine. Like, how you feeling today? I'm still in grief.
You're still in, even though you may look normal.
I'm still in. I might be laughing this minute and crying the next.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
But I think that you, Reese, stand as such an example. I look at you and I look at there's hope.
Yeah.
Some of the work you've done, we're beginning. We're starting the Xavier.
I'm excited. I'm
Foundation.
excited.
To God be the glory.
Yes.
Where he leads me, I'll follow. We're going to wrap up. I think that we have had such insightful conversations.
Robust conversations.
Very much so.
Yes.
Very much so. As we are wrapping up this session, once again, I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
And sharing with us, our listeners. I had already asked the Lord that this would go way beyond and that your voice would be amplified.
Absolutely.
And that this would be a moment that those who didn't know Miss Oresa Napper-Williams, and a lot of people do know, people recommended you. I want to say and shout out Pastor Joyce Jones.
Yes.
She is, I don't even know what to call her because
Yes.
our relationship has such a dynamic. I think I'm going to just call her Mama Girl.
Right,
She's
right,
my
right.
girlfriend and my mother
Mama,
at the same time. She was the one
Yes.
that fostered this
Yes, she
relationship,
did.
and
Yes,
that will
she
be
did.
forever.
Yes.
I want to thank you for being here and coming such a long way to share your journey.
Bridget Battles as well.
Yes, Pastor Bridget Battles as well. Yes,
That's sister girl.
Yes, beautiful
Yes.
in her right. And so, yes, we believe, God, that this conversation is going to spark other conversations amongst families who've suffered grief and loss as we have, and
Yes.
that it will compel people to don't just stay in your grief, but there is a purpose, a great work
Absolutely.
that can be done.
Absolutely.
As Rizpah, she didn't just allow her sons to die, but she said, I'm going to stay right here.
That's right.
Until
That's
there
right.
is some honor and dignity and respect put on their names.
Put some respect
Put
on my
some
name.
respect on my name. So as we close out, I want
Yes.
you to look in that camera. And I want you to talk to my listeners. Just let them know how can they get in touch with you. Talk about Not Another Child Inc. And, just anything, parting words in the next minute that you can say to our listeners that they can leave this conversation with.
Yeah, so I think although we talked today about grief and death and different things like that, you have your own experience that God wants you to bring glory to Him through.
Amen.
It can be through sickness, through illness, through disease, whatever your lot is, it's not about you. It is about God. And this is the season that we're living in, that, we make his glory known throughout our lives and throughout our experience and show the fullness of the Lord. And so you can reach me on all social media. We are open, whether you are in Brooklyn or Harlem, where we have support sessions and groups and things like that. We have no borders, because healing has no borders. Trauma has no borders. And so we deal with families all over. We're getting ready to even start doing a monthly Zoom for families, that are in this experience and in this journey. But you can always go to notanotherchild.org. You can put your email address in to get our newsletters. You can inbox me, whatever, however, how bad do you want it? That's the question. I am there. I am reachable once again on Facebook, on Instagram, Oresa Napper-Williams, Oresa, N as in Nancy, A-P-P as in Peter, E-R-Williams. And we're there to support you through this journey.
All right. That concludes our episode of A Mother's Love Never Dies, based on the story of Rizpah. Listen, I'd like to thank you all for listening or joining in the video. It will be posted. If you like this content, we ask that you would go on our website at www.faithwalklifetalk.com and subscribe to our episodes. We're talking all things woman. We're talking about all things Bible. Listen, I enjoyed this time with Lady Reese. I've enjoyed this time with you all. Pray for us. Not Another Child. Look them up. They're doing great work. Listen, in order to talk the talk, you must walk the walk. But most of all, you've got to pray, girl. So until next time, thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.